Welcome back to the Jake Merrick Show, where truth is the only news on the new Freedom 96.9.
All right, guys, welcome back. It's 7:35. And my next guest, you probably know well, Lieutenant Governor Matt Pinnell. He was elected as the 17th Lieutenant Governor of Oklahoma on November 6, 2018, and then he was recently reelected. He got my vote because he's doing a fantastic job around the state. So good morning, Lieutenant Governor.
Hey, good morning, Jake. Thanks for having me.
Man, thank you for being on nice and early. Have you already had your cup of coffee?
Absolutely. I'm into number 2 here.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Well, so you live out in Tulsa and drive in, obviously, your office at the Capitol, and it seems like you're constantly around the state. What are you doing today?
Yeah, so you're right. I live in the Tulsa area, drive into Oklahoma City a number of days every week, but to your point, I mean, I'm all over the state. So, today I'm driving from Tulsa to Chickasha, have a couple meetings there. We actually have a company that's flying into Chickasha that's looking at moving some of their operations to town. So I'll be meeting with them. And then I'll be coming into Oklahoma City for a couple meetings at the Capitol. And then I'm actually speaking to the Tulsa Remote Group this evening, which is a program that recruits people to the city of Tulsa, kind of next generation talent. So that kind of gives you a flavor of a day in the life of a lieutenant governor.
That's awesome.
Most every previous lieutenant governor did crisscross the state a lot. It's kind of a job of the lieutenant governor to kind of be the eyes and ears out, amongst real people, out in districts across 77 counties. And I take that job seriously, and certainly we've focused a lot of our time on tourism and the Department of Commerce, inviting people to the state, because we know how well Oklahoma sells if we can actually get people here.
Absolutely. I want to go back to that in just a second, the recruitment of companies to Oklahoma. But first of all, to that point that you made about the eyes and ears among the people, I think that is the most critical thing that every elected official should have at front of mind is what are the people wanting, because we're elected to represent them. And in your tours across Oklahoma, what are you hearing? Like, what seems to be the outcry or the priority that's coming from the people?
Yeah, we're really dedicated to going into districts, doing town hall meetings, and getting feedback back from grassroots leaders and voters in general. The last couple of years have been nice because we haven't had a presidential election that had kind of sucked a lot of the oxygen out of the room.
Sure.
And I think we're about to get right back into the middle of that kind of environment.
Yeah, it's coming.
And certainly I hope that those presidential debates are focused on tax policy and healthcare in rural parts of our country, life issues. And I certainly hope, because what happens nationally trickles down to a state level. Sometimes too much. Sometimes it's actually really healthy for states to be listening to what's happening at a national level. So, the last couple of years has really been more focused on, hey, I hear we're looking at eliminating the sales tax on groceries, because I could really use some help with that. Post this COVID world or pandemic world or whatever you want to call it, you do have a lot of moms and dads and a lot of families around the state that are trying to make ends meet. And I talk to a lot of those families on a weekly basis their business isn't as healthy as it was before a global pandemic, and they're trying to figure out, okay, hey, how do I adapt? How do I change my small business? Can I survive? Those are some of the issues that have constantly come up. I would say education issues too, though.
Yeah.
From school choice to vouchers. What is a voucher? What isn't a voucher? But also other issues. Just like an increase in violence in our schools that is the culture in schools that have changed considerably, that's making it much more difficult for teachers to actually teach. Those are the kind of issues that have come up in a number of town hall meetings that I've had as well.
Oh, it's so good. There's always a broad scope of issues that are concerns for the people.
It's pretty broad.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's kind of from a 30,000-foot view. That's what I would tell you. Yes, there's always a couple constant narratives. Education, healthcare, roads and bridges, particularly in rural Oklahoma. But it's anywhere from 5 to 10 different issues usually that come up when I have a town hall meeting.
Yeah. Now, talking about your recruitment of businesses, I know that you have your annual Lieutenant Governor's Turkey Hunt, and really to kind of showcase Oklahoma to prospective companies that are looking at the state. So what kind of companies are looking at Oklahoma?
Yeah, well, the first thing I would say is the above the fold headlines are always, what companies are looking to relocate to the state. For your listeners, our Department of Commerce always, belabors the point that we spend probably 70% of our time, at least 70% of our time, with existing companies in the state. So we'll all go preach Oklahoma to the world that it's the best place to live, work, and raise a family. But we're spending most of our time with existing businesses in the state, helping them expand their operations as well. Because, Jake, this as a small business owner yourself. You've chosen to raise your family here, start a business here. We want to help those companies first. And then at the same time, look at companies that are wanting to expand operations. And a lot of people are looking at Oklahoma today. We are a free state. I would love to be even more free,
sure.
but we compete very well against a lot of these anti-business states that are even just regionally. We've had a lot of baby boomers retire from anti-business states or states where they don't like the politics, and they've moved to Oklahoma over the last couple of years. We're one of the top in-migration states over the last couple of years. As far as industry goes, so, that's a good thing. We've got a lot of companies looking at us. We've got a lot of baby boomers moving as well. Aerospace and aviation would be an industry that always is top of mind for us. We talk about oil and gas all the time, and we're still a very strong oil and gas state, and will continue to be. But aviation and aerospace is the number 2 industry in the state of Oklahoma today, and it's only growing. We have drone technology companies or a company that wants to do business with one of our military bases around the state of Oklahoma. It seems like on a monthly basis we're talking to somebody in the defense industry space or aerospace company looking to move to Oklahoma or just be created in Oklahoma. And that's really exciting because that's going to help diversify our economy.
Yes. Well, something that's concerning to me, and I hear it across the state as well, this ESG, the influence of ESG on our banking and our businesses. How big of a factor is that to you when you're looking at these companies? Is that something that comes up in the conversation or in what you're looking at? Because I know, like I said, I'm hearing from it. I went out and spoke to Seminole to their county convention yesterday, and that was a question that came up several times, is what's going on with ESG. So from your perspective, how big of a role does that play in the companies that we're recruiting to Oklahoma?
Yeah, it's a great question because it's come up a lot over the last year. This is something that Todd Russ, our state treasurer, has gotten pretty active in. Really commend him for kind of getting in the middle of that.
Yeah.
As well as just companies that are on the banking front, for example, that refuse to do business with Second Amendment issues or national banking operations that won't engage with companies that don't support certain social policies. Those are things that our state treasurer, as well as our governor and myself and others in the executive branch, are absolutely laser focused on. So we'll continue to be engaged there. I'd say it's come up a ton, Jake, over the last 6 months, 9 months, because so many people are talking about it on the ESG front. So I like where we are right now as far as from the narrative, what I'm hearing from certain elected officials on the executive branch that have some authority there. And I think those county activists will like what they're going to be hearing, and policies and procedures that we have to put in place for that moving forward in the state.
Yeah, definitely an area I think we have to exercise vigilance in and be aware.
Absolutely.
Because I think it is a trap. But, speaking of vigilance, I'll ask you this last thing because it's, again, something, even this morning I got 2 messages asking if I would bring awareness to this. And it's this federal 30 by 30 land grab. And, it involves our trails and our, the Chisholm Trail, these trails that are going right up through the heart of Oklahoma. And the federal government's wanting to absorb these and take it out of production. And these private landowners are very much up in arms. I mean, I go out to western Oklahoma quite a bit, and the farmers and ranchers out there are beside themselves at the prospect of possibly losing part of their ranches. And so I don't know if is that something that you're hearing anything about?
Yeah, so Blaine Arthur actually brought that up. When we're listening to voters and citizens actually across the state of Oklahoma, we can get to the bottom of the story pretty quick, right? I mean, it was the same way with Chinese nationals coming up and buying land in the medical marijuana space. I mean, that was the first people that I heard from were our farmer and ranchers in rural Oklahoma, well before it ever hit the newspapers, So, so Blaine Arthur, she is our Secretary of Agriculture, has been the governor's executive director at the Department of Ag as well for over 4 years. She brought this up in a recent meeting. It was actually in one of our land commissioner meetings. So it is on her radar.
Yes.
It is on her radar. Having a plan in place to be pushing back against the federal government, which certainly we're going to do, is something that I know that they are working on now. But yeah, I mean, it's just the most recent example of the overreach of federal government that any state has to be able to push back on. I have not talked to our Attorney General's office about something like this, but this is absolutely something that states' attorneys across the country are going to have to help us out with too. So certainly I hope that we'll get that support from our Attorney General's office as well. For
sure. Well, he's been very active, and I've appreciated his efforts in protecting Oklahoma. And I appreciate you. I appreciate all the work you do for the state, and thank you again for your time this morning.
Absolutely, man. Again, I'm glad you're doing this show. It's desperately needed in our state. Always appreciated your leadership at the Capitol, and appreciated that you've stayed engaged. So this is great, and call me anytime, because I'd love to report back on what's going on around the state of Oklahoma.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you. All right, we'll talk to you again.
Thanks, Jake.